fly into the thing.
So we have along here the water ribbons. You can just reach down into the water, get down below the mud and the rocks, and you pull the water ribbon out. You can wash those off in the water, wash the mud and the dirt off them, and you just put them straight in your mouth and eat them. Beautiful food.
That's the part there.
It's a great vegetable. But the women also harvested the water ribbon as a means of weaving it into baskets so that food could be put into the baskets. The baskets could be put into the fire, covered up with dirt and allowed to steam and cook the food.
See the sap on the side of that tree there? See it? Well, that's wattle gum, and it's good to keep your appetite. If we go out hunting and we see a lot of gum, well, that'll keep us chewing and nourished, keep us going for a while.
You've got rushes over there that were used for weaving. The seeds were used for grind into flour to make damper.
So if I cut that there like that and then come around and did the same thing, and then I tap it, and then I get a stick of something on it, and it'll pop out, and there's me coolum already made. I don't have to put it in and wet it and bend it. So you take it out like that, so it's already there, like on a big tree. I remember some people saying one day, "Oh, what do we do if we ever run out of food?" I said, "Oh, just come up to my camp, up my country." I said, "We've got a supermarket."
Yeah, the healing walk probably grew out of my own desire for personal redress, because I felt the absence so keenly of the old people and the law and the culture from this area because of the brutal dispossession that happened in the mid-1800s. So I felt some desire to, bugger that, let's get people and walk back into this country again like they used to, because they used to gather at Lake Bolac before European settlement. They gathered there to harvest the eels when the autumn rains induced the eels to leave the lake and the lake overflowed. Up to 1,000 people would be gathered around the lake, and there were traps in down the Salt Creek and stuff to hold important ceremonies and business and trading and all the First Nation business of the day. And I said, well, geez, I had a gathering here, let's have a gathering again sort of thing, you know. Let's do that. That's a wonderful historical precedent, you know. It was just natural that after doing the Hopkins up to Lake Bolac, we wanted to see where the water came from that fills Lake Bolac, which is of course along the Fiery Creek. So in 2006 we went up to Mount Buanga there and above Raglan and found what we believed was one of the tributaries anyway at the source of the Fiery Creek, and Ted Lubber set us off from there. We found a lot of evidence of Indigenous, you know, occupation. It's still all there. Marvellous scar trees, you know. Any landholder that's got them on their property, they should be preserving these things, you know. It's the true history of Australia. We also saw what a difference there is between a conscientious landholder and one that isn't. It's pretty obvious when you walk through the boundary fence, and sometimes it's like chalk and cheese, whereas a conscientious landholder usually tries to preserve and maintain, you know, a percentage of his holding. Try to maintain the natural ecosystems that live there, and whereas someone who doesn't care just sort of flogs the country, and you know, we found dead sheep in the creek and things like that, and just really open drains virtually.
From when I was a little kid, I lived on the creek. In those days, you didn't sort of hang around the house. Right, get out of here. And they didn't worry where you were till the next mealtime.
I walk down here at least every fortnight. Yes, it just changes every time. The light just shows different aspects of the creek and the red gums, you know, through the lovely little corridors along the creek. And that one day where the creek was just moving, and it it was as if the creek was alive, because the ribbons were all just sort of synchronised with this movement, and it was quite beautiful.
I realised that most of my life had been spent beside waterways. But whether that influenced what I do or what I believe in, I'm not really sure. But I think your parents might give you principles, and I'm sure that my mother gave me a lot of principles about the land and leaving it, trying to leave it better than you might find it, or looking after it where others might not.
Aboriginal people have told me it's still your country. You've got to sit down in it and it will teach you. So the process of walking is an extension of that. It's actually of learning and listening and watching, and the land then teaches you what you can do, how to survive in it. By doing that, you develop a connection, because you start to realise, well, I'm part of the land now. I'm part of this, everything, the trees, the birds and animals. Humans are part of that. We're not separate to it. And when that concept's there, then it changes the way you look at the land and changes the way how you perceive it. And you just can't take, you've got to put back. You just can't, you know, so that would change the way you manage the farm, for example, if you have that consciousness.
When we went looking for swan eggs, we were only allowed to take one egg out of that swan nest. So, you know, we all had our limitations, you know. Don't over-colonise us, you know. We've got beautiful country, but we're getting bigger and bigger. So in our time, you know, we had 10,000 of our mob on the Mara country, and that's a big mob. But you'll have a look at the things that said, you know, like from the Grampians right down to fed all those people, that rivers and creeks and that fed all the people right down to the coast. And that's the thing about it. You always think of what's there, never overkill or never overtake. Take what you need.
It's important that people understand what part the creeks and the waterways play in our daily lives. Without them, we wouldn't survive. So people have to put a lot more value into what we have.
The biggest change is that growing of cereals or pulses or whatever uses more water, and yes, we've got less rainfall. But if the landholders want to stay profitable and be here to help do some of the other things, we've got to work with that. We've had joint research projects with the Southern Farming Systems. We've talked about working on the swamps that are drying up. There are some swamps that'll never be profitable, and Beyond Bolac is assisting with some projects that are looking at all those areas to say, well, yes, you can plough that swamp up and, you know, no one can stop you, it's your land, but it's not going to make you much money, so maybe you're better off just to leave it as it is. I'm hoping that might be some of the results we'll get from that research.
If there are voices and if people are listening, then there isn't a disconnect. The disconnect is when people aren't listening to the views of others. I think that the whole community, the people who live along the creek, the people in this catchment area are much more aware and attuned now to the issues which exist along the creek. We now have catchment management authorities, which we didn't have 20, 30 years ago.
The landholder uptake has just been amazing. In coming into an area where there had been very little support previously, It's been a very, very positive response that we've had from the community, and people have absorbed the information very keenly, and it's opening the door for more works.
And when there's water to the edge.
It's an unnamed tributary of the Fiery Creek, and so we've fenced off about 100 metres over there to the north, and we've planted it with all native species. It's a very difficult thing to explain, the satisfaction you get from having improved the aspect of the land, I think, and looking after it, not cutting it down.
So I think everyone likes to nurture something, or at least nurture what's still there, prevent it from deteriorating. But and everyone finds, I think, some way of, people talk about spirituality and meditation and so on, but everyone finds their own way of finding that and finding that space.
I think the changes that are occurring now, right along the creek length, a greatly increased landowner awareness of the creek and of its significance, and of a general desire to do the right thing by the creek. People would probably always have wanted to do the right thing, but they may not have been as aware as they are now of the significance of what they do.
It's a strong country, and it's, you know, and it's regenerated itself.
The Fiery Creek is and always has been a corridor. It's been a place from the mountains to the lake and thence to the sea. So as a corridor, it's a wildlife corridor, it's a corridor for birds, it's a corridor for insects, and although it would seem that the creek is not of great economic importance, it affects our lives in different ways.
When I first left old England, sure such yarns as we were told, as how folks in Australia could pick up lumps of gold. So when we got to Melbourne town, we were ready soon to slip and get even with the captain. We scuttled from his ship, with my swag all on my shoulder, Black Billy in my hand. I travelled the bush of Australia like a true-born native man. We steered our course for Portland town, then northwest to Ballarat, where some of us grew mighty thin, and some got sleek and fat. Some tried their luck at Bendigo, and some at Fiery Creek. I made a fortune in a day, but I lost it in